Hello there, and welcome to Adonai and Art, where we look at temporary art and put it under the lens of the eternal artist. I am your host, Noel Davison, and I am so thankful that you, the audience member, are here today. And I'm additionally thankful for my two guests today. I have Grant, once again, the buff linguini.
Hello.
And now I have brought along his wife, long-haired Colette.
Hi.
Say hello, Abby.
Hello, guys.
All right, so I am very blessed to have these two with me today. And Abby, what are we talking about today?
Oh, well, we are talking about the theological theming throughout Daredevil Born Again, specifically in regards to justice.
Yes. Oh, and I'm very excited for this because, for a reference for the audience, I am coming at this as somebody who only watched Daredevil Born Again. I saw footnotes of Daredevil, and these two showed me the first episode of the Netflix show last night. But I know very little about it, and my connection to these characters is purely based on the Disney Plus show, which might be sacrilegious to these two, but I can let them say as they want.
Only slightly.
Okay, good.
It's okay. It'll do for now.
Okay, did I lose my salvation for this?
No, you're fine.
Okay,
we're not Catholics, okay.
Okay, so with this, for each of you, I'll start with Grant. Who has been your favorite character, specifically in Born Again's context?
Oh man, that's a good question because it's so different from the Netflix show. I think it has to be Matt for me. I mean, I think it is a worthy sequel to the original, but I'm obviously heckin' biased here. But I just love seeing his struggle with the dark side of himself that he calls in Daredevil, and not wanting to go back to it. He almost sees it as like an addiction or something like that. And I also love that he hates himself for what happened. Spoilers. But that Foggy dies and he is slowly going back to who he once was. But he realizes and seeing, the depravity of the city and Kingpin's chaos coming to fruition. He knows that he has to come back. So just seeing his journey throughout the season, okay, I should probably go back to being Daredevil, but I don't know what this means for me, and things like that. So, yeah, I would say Matt, for sure.
Fair enough. Abby?
This is really hard. I think through both of the series, I'm definitely connected to Karen in a lot of ways. And although she's only in a few episodes in Born Again, I still think she brings so much to the table in regards to Matt's character development, because she is undoubtedly a big part of who he is, both as Matt Murdock but also as Daredevil. And so I really appreciate not only her backstory but also the meaning that she has to Matt and the way that she draws him back to good and reminds him, especially in Born Again, of Foggy's desire for him, as well as she knows that Daredevil is needed in some form or fashion, and I really appreciate that. But I also have a little bit of a curveball because I think I really enjoyed Kingpin in Born Again, and I really did fall in love with the character, even though I absolutely hated his guts in the original series. But watching him in Born Again, especially after watching even Hawkeye and Echo and things like that, having those connections to him as well, seeing him go from the Kingpin of the OG series to now the Kingpin of Born Again, and everything with Vanessa has been really interesting, and watching his descent, because at the beginning of Born Again he wanted to just be Mayor. He didn't want to be Kingpin anymore. He wanted to be Mayor Fisk. But then as the series goes on, you see him falling back into this, or even, honestly, it doesn't even seem like he really stepped away from it in the first place. And so to see that kind of re-descent into madness, or the veil, if you wouldn't mind me saying, the veil being torn between this personality he desires to put forth rather than the personality he actually has and the character he actually has, is also really interesting to see, and I think I enjoyed his portrayal a lot in Born Again.
And what about you, Noel?
Well, there's quite a vast amount of characters, Grant and Abby. But this city, it needs a good character. It's Kingpin. It's absolutely Kingpin. Which is so funny, because Kingpin's one of my favorite villains of all time, but I've had very few times I've seen the character done well, if that makes sense. I've seen him multiple times.
Right.
And there's good interpretations. Into the Spider-Verse is pretty good. The 90s series has a great voice, but I don't know. I saw Hawkeye, so like that was the first time I really saw Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin. And
so crazy.
Yeah, like he's wearing the Hawaiian shirt. He's like getting the luau vibes on him. Yeah. Aloha. But, it was really this show that like really solidified. But yeah, like I love the way Vincent D'Onofrio himself says he tries to play him as a monster and a man-child at the same time.
Yes.
Just like someone who is deeply human and has been hurt, but is also terrifying. 100%. And I love seeing that. He genuinely wants to reconcile with his wife. He loves Vanessa, but he's also totally willing to bust a dude's head open if he needs to assert his control. And it's so interesting, especially the parallels with him and Matt of just the way, like, both try and avoid their previous lives, but find the only way they can get what they want individually is by being that identity again.
Right. Yeah. It's so cool to see. And, like, I love the Kingpin, like, differentiation this, like, time around, because we've never seen... Honestly, we haven't seen either of these characters in the place that they've been, like, that they start at in Born Again, you know? Like, both of them are... like trying to be different people or avoiding I would honestly say avoiding their old lives. And so like with Kingpin specifically, I know Vincent D'Onofrio actually said this in an interview, but he said that he went through counseling with his wife too in real life.
Oh, wow.
And so like he got to relate more to the character and doing the counseling scenes with Vanessa, and I really love those scenes. And I'm definitely biased, but you know, I love those counseling scenes. So.
Yeah. So I guess just on a logistical level, I would ask you both, how does this compare to the original show? Because I know you both love the original show, but I also trust you two enough to know like you're not going to just let nostalgia cloud, like, if you think there's legitimately good content. Because all I've seen on YouTube are people saying it's not as good as the original show and not bringing up, like, any of the strong points the show has.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can be blinded by nostalgia for the original, and
which is ironic because Matt has that exact problem when it comes to Vision.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, no kidding. It's so funny too. Like whenever sticking with the blind joke, I like whenever Matt goes into being Daredevil again, and you see like all the different Daredevil helmets, you're like, he definitely doesn't see those colors.
How did he get those colors?
He was like, oh yeah, I'll just get another helmet of the same color, you know.
You can just put a bucket over his head and he's not going to feel the difference.
Yeah, right. But going back to the actual question.
Yes.
I hail the original show as the best comic book show to ever be made. So I think it's a worthy sequel to the original. And after the whole creative overhaul, I think they did the best that they could with what was given. And they had to like Frankenstein it essentially and piece it back together, but they did a really good job of like bringing back the characters that they needed to for it to make sense, to be a continuation of the Netflix show, while also still bringing in like fresh eyes, like such as yourself, like to see these characters in a whole different spot and get to know them, and things like that. So I would say it's a worthy sequel, although I do think the original is still, the best.
Yeah, and that's totally fair.
Yeah. So I'm lucky because I don't have nostalgia for the original show because I didn't watch it until just a few years ago when Grant and I started dating and got engaged. And so for me, I love the show genuinely because I believe it is a wonderful show. And I have seen a lot of the other superhero shows such as Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, like all the DC ones, Moon Knight, like I've watched all the Marvel ones as well. And so I've even seen others in the like Daredevil world, like I've seen some of Punisher, I've seen some of Jessica Jones, I've seen some of all of those. And so I really must say, like, in regards to the original series, it's just a piece of cinema, as well as like the acting in it. It's just one of a kind. It really is. It's one of a kind. And I do agree with Grant in regards to the fact that I also believe it's one of the best, if not the best, portrayal of a comic book character in a show. With Born Again, being able to put aside my emotions towards Daredevil as just like enjoying it as a show. because I really do enjoy it. Born Again, I also think Born Again does a pretty good job. I do understand the Frankenstein sense in it. I understand that some episodes are different than other episodes, and Matt's portrayed differently in some of the episodes. And so if you can get past that, I really do think that it is a good portrayal, as well as like the ending, like the episodes that were done by the same, was it writers, creators, whatever it is?
The writers from Loki and Moon Knight basically started and ended the show.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, like, I mean, there's definitely a very obvious difference between those episodes to the middle episodes and things like that. And I think that those episodes, the bookend episodes that were done by the writers, were definitely closer to the original. So, I don't know. I think that in regards to closeness to the original, those episodes, I think, are on par.
Okay,
probably
fair.
on par. In regards to the rest of the series, I mean, you still see Matt's character, like, defending, White Tiger, seeing him be a lawyer is always so enjoyable, and that is a part of Matt. That is one of his sides. Like, yes, he's Daredevil, but he really is Matt Murdock. He really is a lawyer that cares.
Yeah. He's a really good lawyer.
We see that in the original series. We see, him being an amazing lawyer with his best friend Foggy. We see Karen getting involved in law. That is such a big part of him. So being able to see him be Matt Murdock as the lawyer and still be really like torn between these two worlds, I think that was really cool to see. Just in regards to that, even if those episodes aren't quite on par as the other ones, I still think that Matt's character development and the drawback to the original series in that way was really important to see, especially for new viewers. Like Grant said, I definitely think that they needed to know that side, because it's easy to go into a superhero show and be like, I'm here for the superhero moments. Yeah, cool. Do a flip.
Crowd cheer.
Cool. Kiss the damsel in distress. All of that kind of stuff. It's easy to do that. But then I think the people that really, really love Daredevil and really, really love Matt Murdock see him for both sides of who he is. And if a new viewer was going to come and watch Born Again before the original series, I think that it does pretty well in explaining the characters and in showing both the sides, and then introducing other side characters that are important to Matt's story. So that's a long-winded way of saying, like, yeah, I think Born Again does fairly well. Genuinely, I really do.
And from a newbie's perspective, I still think I hear the phrase art from adversity, that like, okay, they made those middle episodes, White Tiger, something so Irish, Colin Farrell's Bullseye was looking up from his drunken stupor and going like, But at the same time, I think the art from adversity I was talking about was that all of it still, I think, works in terms of building up the point of Matt realizing that he needs to come back as Daredevil, that we're seeing these different aspects of like a genuine superhero who's not a superhero. Well, I guess he does have powers, but it's the idea that he's just genuinely a noble person who tries to help, and the cops end up killing him because, for whatever reason that they choose, because they're leading in selfishness and power. And even just like the Irish stuff, it's showing that like Matt's martial arts skills are still very useful in helping situations like that. It all just shows him different layers of how broken the justice system is in New York. Because that's my favorite part of the show, is that New York is its own character. Like, I will say, this might sound like an overgeneralization, but I felt more impact when the last episode had all those riotings happen. That hit more to me than the Chitauri invasion from the Avengers, because we spent time with the people in the city, and it's not like a big CG slithering snake thing flying through space. It's like an actual real thing that could happen, especially because it ties into that theme of just the justice system has, to pull arrow a little bit, but it's failed the city, that like, the people are not being cared for, which is why someone like Daredevil is so important to help.
Yeah, and I think that's why like Angela White Tiger's niece was like such a great like catalyst for like Matt to finally put back on the Daredevil suit. Like she was like, we don't have like any of these heroes back. Like we don't have Punisher. Spidey's out there, but we're not seeing him. But he's a fraud. You're a fraud, Spider-Man. No, but you don't see White Tiger out there because Hector, got shot, and you see just how much crime is going on and Muse is continuing being allowed to rise and to killing more innocents on the street that just come up to him, you know?
Yeah, they're praising his work right before they get butchered.
Oh my goodness, that was wild to watch.
It was certainly dark. I think it
Definitely
matches
dark.
the Netflix show in terms of darkness.
I agree with that statement for sure. I definitely think they drew in the darkness of the first one, but I think people wanted that. But here's the deal. Of course, Born Again is not going to be the same as the original series because the original series started from the ground up. They created this version of Matt and Daredevil and Foggy and Karen and Kingpin and all the rest of the characters we've come to love. And so Born Again, there is still this aspect, though being a new show, there is still this aspect of we're supposed to kind of know who this person is already. You know? So like, of course there's going to be people more connected to the original show because you're knowing Matt from the get-go. Like, the first episode is his first day being a lawyer. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, of course there's going to be more emotional draw and there's going to be more liking for that series because we were able to grow with him as a character. Whereas in Born Again, we're kind of coming to an end of an era, if you want to call it, with Foggy's death and Karen moving and Matt being on his own, things like that. But this story has already been started in the past series, and now we're just seeing a new chapter of his life. We're seeing a new beginning, which is why Born Again, all this stuff. And so, like, I see why people would still like the original series better and say that it is better because there is still more emotional pull. And I mean, to be fair, like, the people who put out Born Again expected the watchers of the OG series to be the main people that watch this series. So you don't really have to have an emotional pull. You don't really have to have a lot of building blocks with Born Again because it's already been done. So those that come in fresh and watch Daredevil, they still know a little bit, and they give enough information to be like, oh, I kind of know what's going on here. Like, yeah, I've heard enough, whatever. But, I mean, the people that have been watching Daredevil for so long, they're not going to have as much of an emotional connection to Born Again because they are going to be more connected to the original series.
Like, so when you see, like, Foggy, get, shot, you know, you're not crying and weeping like I am, you know? But
absolutely.
But you still see how that affects Matt as a character.
It's a great initial incident in the story for, like, why Matt throws away the mantle for a time.
A great story reason, and as short-lived as it was to see Foggy again, it was still great to see him again. And like to see Nelson, Murdock, and Paige like together at least for a bit was nice. And then going to Josie's, you see like old stuff from the OG show. That you have spent time with, but I loved how it affected Matt so deeply, his grief and hatred for himself, and how the sin that of Bullseye killing him, of killing Foggy, affected him and affected the city too. So
even to that point though, I like how even though they did kill off Foggy, his death is still a catalyst to the story, as we saw in the last few episodes of Born Again. Like, we went all the way back to his death to realize what was going on. And now, I'm assuming, the second season of Born Again is going to be wrapped around whatever happened to Foggy. And so I appreciate that even though they killed him off, they made his death meaningful to the story and to the continuation of the story. And so that is going to be really, really interesting to watch. And it's still going to make you want more because you're emotionally connected to Foggy, but he's not all the way gone. Which I really appreciate.
His impact is felt.
His impact is felt, and they were very smart by doing that. Because I think if they had completely cut him out of the story, if they had just completely just killed him off, no more, whatever, doesn't matter, dunsies, and it was only for Matt's fall, or Matt's pull away from being Daredevil, yes, that would make sense. But in the grand scheme of things, there needs to be a little bit more connection, I think.
I would agree, because, like, especially just from the way I view stories, even just coming into this one fresh, it's like, as someone who likes cameos from things I like, but also hates when they feel so empty, it's like, you at least got the characters back, and it's like, not trying to be boring about the real life behind the scenes, but like, it makes sense to me that Karen and Foggy's actors aren't going to be there because they might not be under contract to be a part of the series.
Yeah.
So if you're going to bring them back for a cameo, isn't it more satisfying that Foggy gets like a send-off that becomes a tragedy that affects the whole season
100%.
rather than it's just like Foggy goes, hey, I decided to meet this girl in Florida, so I'm gonna go over there. Bye, Matt, love you.
Yeah, or like
So true.
or if
so
they
true.
like pretended like if Foggy like continued to live and it didn't like affect Matt as much, I would have
Right.
hated the show, to be honest, because like Foggy is
That
such
wouldn't
a
be
big
fair to his
part
character.
of Matt's
It is,
life and
it's
journey,
true.
and so
Such a
that
big
would
part.
have like just been a
That would have been.
that would have hurt somebody
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
like spent so much time with him.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
And I loved getting to see from like the first episode, like you said, how it shattered everything. Matt stops being Daredevil. Karen and Matt become split. I actually have the quote written down I love where Matt tells Karen, I refuse to believe a tragedy had to ruin everything. Then Karen says, but it did.
yeah,
It's that detail I love where even like from only seeing a few episodes of Karen, I've grown to really like her character because I
She's so good.
immediately
She's
see
so good.
her being the heart that pulls and drives like the motivation of Daredevil, even to the
Yes.
point of like she gives off the horn that Matt ends up holding and doesn't let go of until episode 4 when he decides to start training himself as Daredevil again. It's
Literally.
that little piece of who he was that can remind him of what he's supposed to be. And I think that's why Karen gives the horn. It's not just a memorabilia. It's that subtle way of giving him something to stew on, so that way eventually he does come back.
yeah.
Yeah.
It feels as though she's like begging him to like please like don't quit being Daredevil because like the city needs you.
Yes.
And you know, so she gives him that as a reminder that the city needs him and the city it is, you know, in need of help.
Yes. And I especially want to focus on the Catholic perspective Matt has as a character, because that's something even from the first episode of the original Daredevil we watched, I really find fascinating of
Forgive me, Father, for what I'm about to do.
yes,
Yeah, like,
exactly.
you know,
The
sort of thing.
confession scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That he's ready to do what he thinks might be too extreme, but also necessary. And even like in the first episode, that wonderful coffee shop scene with Kingpin,
Yeah.
I love where he says, "I was born to believe in grace, but also retribution."
It's so good.
That threat that like Kingpin, you step out of line, I'm coming for you.
Yes.
Imagine here, I would crap my pants if I heard like somebody say that. You know, like imagine like
The most poetic way of saying, I'm gonna clap you
Yeah.
if you try and do anything
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah,
You are-
literally.
you will not escape me,
Dude.
which is just
Which is crazy too that both Kingpin and Matt Murdock can be so ominous.
And
Like both
threatening.
of them
Right.
Yeah, I
can
know.
be threatening to each other.
Yes.
You know, there's a reason why both of them are scared of each other. Like, and you see that. You see that. Like Kingpin is completely terrifying, yet he is afraid of Daredevil in
Right.
some way, and you can see that in both series. And the same thing with Matt. Matt is furious with Kingpin, but he also knows the distance Kingpin will go to get what he wants, and and Daredevil has seen that. Matt has seen that firsthand.
Yes.
And so he understands that he's walking into the lion's den.
Yes.
Yet he's still willing to be just as threatening as Kingpin's willing to be, even
Right.
though Matt has a heck of a lot more to lose and a heck of a lot less weight to throw around.
Yes.
yeah. I really like the directors kind of draw a line similar to how Batman and Joker have a relationship. They have like it's almost like a necessity to each other. Like you can't have one without the
Like
other.
a yin
Sure.
and yang pull.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Especially because, strangely enough, they seem like they can be the most honest with each other in that coffee shop scene.
Yeah.
That,
They-
like,
It's crazy.
they can just kind of reflect on the fact they've almost killed each other
Yeah,
multiple
multiple
times.
And like laugh it off.
Right, yeah. It's
Okay.
like,
They're like old co-workers that like got brought back together. You
Remember
know?
that one time?
for
Yeah.
real.
Remember when I almost snapped your neck in front of your wife on your wedding day? Like, swear, well, you'll get there anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh
Good to
man,
know.
spoilers.
I can deal with it.
Yeah.
I've seen enough stories.
Yeah.
But I guess like that can be a good segue into why doesn't Matt kill Kingpin? Obviously, I know the answer. The show has kind of given it. Especially love the last episode where he finds Hector's killer. But specifically from your guys' perspective, or just what you know from the full context of this franchise, why won't Matt just kill Kingpin?
he
Especially
wants to.
Especially because other versions of Daredevil seem okay with killing.
Yeah, it honestly depends on who's writing him
really
too.
does, yeah.
But
Good writers are bad.
yeah, right. And honestly, it's one of the most like relatable. Well, I guess not relatable, but like it's nice seeing us. Yeah, it's nice seeing a struggle with that because, like, it also goes back to his faith.
Yeah.
And, like, he knows that, people can have redemption. He believes in that. And, that's perfectly portrayed, like, with Frank, who believes that, these criminals are irredeemable, like you see in the last episode of the Born Again. He's like, why don't you just put a bullet through that bald guy's head, And he was like, it's not worth it. And in that same conversation, well, not same conversation, the same one that, a similar one that they have in episode 4, yeah,
where Frank has a big old beard.
yeah, he's all grimmed up and just,
He should have kept it, in my opinion. He looks so hot with it.
Yeah, and so that conversation that he has with Frank about like not killing Bullseye is probably my favorite scene in the entire show. I go back frequently and watch it because it gets me emotional talking about it. But like whenever you see Matt says he got life, there's this like that has a great double meaning for him because he spared Bullseye, even though he did try to kill him, but he knew he was probably gonna be fine. Especially if you've seen the original show, he knows like if a fall can kill a person. But it's great because he's trying to justify him going to prison and also like sparing his life because he could have just gone back down there and finished the job if he wanted to too. But he truly believes in the redemption of criminals, and it goes back to his faith in God, and he believes in hope.
And I also think it shows that Matt / Daredevil understands the weight of sin as well. There is definitely an overarching understanding of the weight of sin. Hence, I think that is why he went to confession in the first episode of the original series anyways. He understands it from his Catholic perspective. He understands he needs to repent of these things. He needs to confess these things. And so I don't know. That's how I think about it too.
For sure. I think he really does understand like what it means to take a life, and that once that life is gone, like that's it. They don't have a second chance anymore, and that if they are living, then they have that opportunity to turn to God, and that's what he wants for them, and he has that compassion. Even though he's beating the crap out of them sometimes.
Snapping their limbs sometimes.
And throwing fridges at them and such. But, or a microwave in the original show,
Fun.
He believes in that, even though, that's his darker side coming out. And which is why he goes to confess,
I really do like seeing his battle within in regards to that. I don't know. I really enjoy watching it. I don't know why I enjoy I do think it is because it's relatable in some form or fashion. Like, being Christians, understanding that there is a darker side, a human side that is wedded to sin, and then there's this spiritual side that is wedded to Christ. And so you're constantly at battle with it, which is why Jesus says you have to pick up your cross daily. You have to kill your flesh daily to follow him. And so to watch Matt, a superhero, struggle with that same thing, of course in a grander sense, with murder and whatnot, but to watch him genuinely understand the weight of what he's about to do or what he has done, and then be able, even in a rage of fury, be able to say, I will not take that step over. I can't take that step over. And even in Born Again, like when he took the bullet for Kingpin.
Yeah.
Holy cow, I wasn't expecting that at all. Like, that really surprised me. Like, I feel like it should have made sense to me. But when I watched it, I was very stunned at it. Very stunned.
Yeah.
So I really like that, though, because he, in that entire episode, even the episode I think prior, he was so angry at Kingpin. Like, he was like,
feel it
he was like
through the screen.
Yeah,
he was about to break his cover that he can walk around without a stick and just beat the snot out of the bald man.
I mean, seriously, like, he really was just absolutely fuming, and he wanted to, like, essentially like attack Kingpin, and of course they're at this ball and he can't do a lot, but then in the midst of this rage, in the midst of this overwhelming emotion, realizing what happened and the part that Kingpin / Vanessa had to play in this, he still took a bullet for his ultimate nemesis. Like,
ooh, yes.
that, if that's not Christian, I don't know what it is. What is. You know what I'm saying? Is like, even like at your darkest times, you still show love, you still show forgiveness to your enemies.
Right.
And like to be able to watch a superhero do that
is really cool.
Is so cool. It is so cool, and I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, to bounce off that, there's a great line in the penultimate episode that Bullseye said, you know, if circumstances were different, you know, you might be defending me, because that's what good men do, right, is defend their worst enemies.
Oh,
and then
gosh.
later in the episode, he goes on to save Kingpin.
Yeah.
So, you know, Matt,
That's true.
he got called out, but then ended up, you know, doing the very thing that Bullseye said.
And made Bullseye regret he didn't at least have one more bullet for that sniper rifle.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
I wonder if he was just like, you know, I'm gonna shoot it, and I don't need any other bullets. Like, he was so confident, maybe. You
I
know?
mean, he's able to like kill a man with his friggin' tooth in his mouth. So
Yeah, that
Literally,
was
that
wild.
was such a wild. That was so.
Bullseye's
wild.
terrifying in the show.
He's so scary. No, you gotta watch the original series.
I
because
know.
He
I
doesn't
know.
even like that. Doesn't even touch anything in this series compared to the original series. Like, if you think that's crazy,
We
yeah,
sound
you
like
better,
purists,
You
but
gotta,
yeah, we're-
you gotta prepare yourself, dude. Prepare
All
yourself.
right.
I'm sorry, guys, we are purists, but it's so good.
Hey, nope, fair enough.
So good.
But even then, with like Matt's philosophy, which is so compelling, and like I agree, I love that. I love that redemptive side of him, that he still believes in a second chance. I think something that I still butt heads with is I'm pretty anti-violence.
Yeah.
And especially in real life, I think that pulls like when I really sat down to like outline this episode, I was thinking to myself, is it truly biblical that a Christian might be able to do the same kind of thing Daredevil is doing? Like, would it be justifiable for a Christian to attack his enemies even if he doesn't kill them? I'd personally say no, and that's still the separation from fiction. Mainly because, well, I actually, before I say anything more, like, I'd love you to add in on that.
I mean, you know, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but I definitely think that we have to remember that there is a difference between Catholicism and like our, what is it called?
We're in the more
Protestant-
reformed,
yeah, Reformed Protestant
non-denominational.
Christianity. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a difference there, not too big in regards to that. I mean, maybe it is big, I don't know. But like, I wouldn't think, not too big, but there definitely is a difference there.
Sure.
But I don't know. I definitely see the side of nonviolence in Christianity, 100%. Jesus, you know,
Turn the other cheek.
he
sort of
turned the
thing.
other cheek, and
Yes.
he, you know, he literally instructed his people to submit to authority. And then Christianity took over Rome, not by war, but by spreading.
By sheer numbers.
by sheer numbers, by literally multiplying, by doing what
Right.
God said in the garden, and being fruitful and multiplying. Like, that's
And
how
Jesus
they took
said in Matthew.
exactly.
Right.
And so, like, I think that there's something to be said about that. I think.
And to be honest, like, I don't have a straight answer.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
I
I
could
agree.
say, because, you know, I haven't quite figured out where I stand.
Right.
I agree.
And because, you know, there's a fine balance, I feel, somewhere in the middle between, you know, non-violence and also, like, you know, their self-defense, but I just haven't figured out where that is yet. And-
Sure.
It's true. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I say, like, I may be more confident in my position, but I in no way am trying to say mine's the right one.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
It's
for
all
sure.
opinions, but I will say I think something that like I actually have a lot of respect for Catholicism, and I
Yeah,
believe
same
like
here.
within the right branch it is genuine faith and not
Yeah.
heresy.
Yeah.
Not everyone thinks Mary's God, but
yeah.
but I do think an important thing I feel personally for Matt is that he does seem to have a faith based more on works and getting what he deserves
Right.
rather than a faith in what God can do, because I think
Right.
where my position really stands on why I think ultimately we do stand up and call out oppression like Martin Luther King did. I think there is a place for us speaking out against injustice between humans. But really, I think the difference is that our opponents at the end of the day are not other humans. It's Satan and the demons who are puppeteering everything in the background. Ephesians 6:12 says, "For our war is not against flesh and blood, but the principalities, the spirits, the cosmic forces over this world." And I think that's where I more stand, because even in the Bible, I think one of the craziest things that's not talked about as much is the idea that if we have a kingpin-esque figure, the gospel of Jesus is one of redemption and love and grace. And it seems like leave it up to God. So for Hebrews 10:30, it says, "For we know him who said, 'Vengeance is mine, I will repay.' And again, the Lord will judge his people." Romans 12:19, "Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, 'Vengeance is mine, I will repay,' says the Lord." There's also the idea of you will heap burning coals on someone's head whenever you're nice to them when 100%. They're not. And then Hebrews 10:31, going back, "It's fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God."
Yeah.
So I bring all these up together because I think a really interesting historical lens we can take on this is, who were the 3 emperors that likely would have been reigning when these were written?
Yeah, Nero.
Yes.
I'm not sure about the others, to be honest.
Caligula at the earliest.
Yeah.
Claudius in the middle.
Yeah.
Or Nero. And I honestly think that their actions sometimes make Muse and Kingpin together look relatively tame, all things considered. Allegedly, Caligula restored treason trials to Rome, which involved mass executions. He had a horrible problem of seducing senators' wives and seduced 3 of his biological sisters.
Holy cow.
Yep, that's a real thing he did. And let like the whole empire know.
Absolutely not.
Claudius is an example of not bullying disabled people because he had a physical handicap, was bullied his whole life. And so when he became an emperor, he would force his soldiers to recreate battle scenes from Rome, including kills, which was normal. But was unique to Claudius is that if anyone messed up the ritual, he would have that centurion's head turned towards his eyesight as their throat was being slit. Just like,
Lord.
let their last moment be like, you done messed up.
Wow.
I'm pissed off at you.
Wow.
Wow.
And then Nero, like literally that's why Emperor Palpatine exists, because Nero was the guy who allegedly burnt his own temple, blamed it on Christians, and would use Christians as lampposts at night, burned people to light the streets as people walked by.
Wow.
It's not even getting into the idea of the mass persecutions where Christians potentially were thrown in the Colosseum for lions to eat for people's entertainment.
Yeah, it's crazy how much more evil people were back in that day.
Yeah,
you
how
know?
much evil we're really capable of as humans.
And Jesus came into the world during that time period for that purpose, because he knew that the most gruesome, most difficult suffering that he would go through would be the crucifixion.
Yes.
The most torturous thing that he could ever do was that. And I think that speaks volumes of Jesus, obviously, but also of the Romans and how they were able to create something so hard and horrible.
And the fact that that creativity was given by God. Like, you know, like we have this free will to create and be artistic. And, you know, we're created in the image of God. We have this amazing ability. And yet the Romans turned that beautiful, beautiful gift from God into something absolutely pure evil.
Yes.
But, I mean, isn't that what humans do on a daily basis?
Yes, like it happens all the time. And even though I don't think our current leaders in the United States are as bad as those emperors,
Right.
it's still a place where like they do some horrible things.
Of course.
And Abby, like full transparency for the audience, I didn't expect to have her on here, but she brought incredible perspectives to this conversation, especially because Born Again seems to really tackle corrupted justice with that's why Matt comes back, because they're not controlling order, they're babysitting chaos.
Such a good line.
A noble man is shot dead by fanatics for a murder. The cops are doing whatever they want, and it's being run by a really horrible crime lord as mayor. And even like the really personal scene of a man who gets arrested because the food stamp system fails him, and he just has nothing else to do but steal kettle corn just to eat something. Like, that hits so personally because I think you said it best last night, is that it really just hits at how unfair the system is for some people.
It really is, yeah. There definitely is very obvious starting points, I think, like genuinely. So, for example, for the information for the audience, I work at a nonprofit that help homeless and underprivileged and low income and the disabled and all of the things. That's what our ministry helps with. And I mean, I see people on a daily basis that come in, and there are very clearly people that do take advantage of the system and that do want to live off of things. And there's always going to be that. We literally just spoke about humans, corruption and all of that kind of stuff.
Corruption of creativity.
Of course, there's 100% that. But there really is genuinely amazing, wonderful people that just had no help. Or literally cannot get a leg up because the system that they were either born into or were quite literally forced to become a part of will not let them have a leg up. There are people who desire to get more hours at work, but because if they get more hours at work, their food stamps will be lessened and they can't afford to literally get good food, or they can't afford to pay rent, or they can't, it evens out to this poverty line. It evens out. So, yeah, okay, if you make $100 extra because you worked a few extra hours at work, well then the food stamps are going to see that and they're going to be like, oh, well, you have that money, so you don't need this, so I'm going to take it away from you. Well, it evens out. It's the same amount of money, and they can't get anything with it, And so, I'm very thankful that ministries like mine exist and that we can help out as much as we can, give out food or give out clothing or whatever. But I really do see that. Like, that is a real thing. It's a daily thing that people struggle with. And I don't like hearing people say that that's not a reality, because it is. It really is. And it affects way more people than you might actually think. And a lot of people that I see, yeah, of course, some are more dingy, some come in looking poor, things like that, but there are people that come in that you would never guess would be poor, because they don't want you to know that they're poor.
Yeah.
They really try to present themselves well. Maybe they have 3 kids at home. Maybe their husband just left them and left them nothing to their name. You don't ever know what the circumstances are. You don't know. And I think it's a call for compassion.
Absolutely.
It's a call to compassion. It's a call to humility, understanding that you don't know everybody's story. And I'm thankful to Jesus that he knows every single person's story, that he is a high priest that understands what it's like to be human, that he can look at the heart of a person and tell whether they're being deceitful or whether they're being honest. But that is not ours as humans to judge. Ours as humans is to lend freely and to be helpful, even if it's not monetary. You can bring someone in with hospitality and give them a meal.
Absolutely.
You can smile at them and tell them that their life is worth it. You can open a door for someone and that might make their day. You never really know what your small acts, how small or how big that they might be, are actually affecting people that are genuinely in need.
Yeah.
And I don't really think people account for that very often in general. And I have seen people in both the aisle of Christianity and the aisle of non-Christianity be incredibly humble and incredibly hospitable. And I've seen people on both the sides of the aisle be horrible.
Yes.
Absolutely horrible. And so, I don't know, like, I can go on a tangent, of course, but this is real. It's a real thing. And we were watching the show with people who do not have the same perspective as I do. And my reaction to that guy eating kettle corn was very different from theirs. Their perspective of it was, why'd you have to put that in anyways? What was the point of that? Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, hold up.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Mind you, might I add, that there are some things that put guardrails on what food you can or can't buy from the stores, mind you. Okay? So people are like, why don't you just use all of that money for produce? Well, maybe the produce doesn't fall under what they're allowed to get. Have you ever thought about that? There are guidelines for these things.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And also, produce, healthy things, if you haven't noticed, are a lot more expensive than unhealthy things.
True.
And the guy said it. You know, he said it. He's like, all I wanted to do was taste something delicious. Why is that such a weird thing?
Right. And even if you're going to be so stingy as to say, like, what was the narrative purpose behind showing that very dark part of the story? It's meant to show Matt how the system is failing. It's meant to show him where it's not working. And I want to put more focus on everything you're saying is incredible, but I still think, even for me, I'll admit, there is some subconscious bias of, is that really true? Is that actually happening?
Right.
So
the doubt.
Yes.
Right.
So within confidentiality of the people, would you be able to give us maybe 1 or 2 personal stories you've experienced of someone's experience with the system to really help us understand this is actually happening right now?
For sure. Yeah, no problem. So just the other day, actually, not quite a week ago, a lady came in. She was an older lady, and I think maybe she was attached to Family and Children's Service, some service, I'm not sure, and they were trying to get her a place to live. And I wasn't the person directly speaking with her. I was in and out of the room, but I had talked with her previously. And I listened to most of the conversation that she had with my coworker, just over the coffee bar drinking, coffee, whatever, having a conversation. And essentially, her story is that she was in an apartment and it was infested with mold, and so she had to move out of the apartment. Okay, so they got her a new apartment. Okay, well, that apartment fell through. Something happened with the renters. They were like, you're not allowed to stay here, whatever. Okay, cool. So they got her another apartment. Like, the people that are helping, the government, the people, all these things, got her I think it might have been a rent house. And she moved into this rent house. And literally less than a week later, she gets kicked out of the house because the foundation of the house is so unsteady that it is unlivable. Wow. That is how messed up this house was. Mind you, this is a house that was verified by the government and by the help that she was supposed to be getting. So now she is yet again homeless because every single one of the housing that she was supposed to be put into and she was supposed to be helped out with either declined her for some reason, and mind you, she didn't do it herself. It was through an organization, so they were the ones connected with these people. But she was either denied for some reason, or the actual living situations were unlivable, completely unlivable, and they were situations that were verified by the government. And it was like, holy cow. And this is a lady who, like, works. She works 2 jobs. Like, she genuinely tries. She's paying, like, she's willing to pay rent, like, the whole 9 yards. Like, this is a lady who's, like, for real. And so, like, to hear her story, and, like, she was so calm about it. Like, she was so calm. She was like, I just want a place to live. I really am trying. I'm willing to pay a down payment. I'm willing to do these things. But the places that I can get into, I literally can't get into. Like, there's no option for me. And so, I don't know. That's kind of a vague story, but that was a recent story that happened, But I don't know. I see things like that all the time. I mean, with the food stamp system, like, that's another thing. Just back in the fall, there was food stamps being stolen. So there were thousands of families having food stamps stolen. We don't know where they went. We don't know where the money went. Over $1 million of food stamps was stolen just in the state of Oklahoma. They couldn't figure out what was going on. So then you have all these families going to the store to buy food for themselves and their children, and their food stamps are getting denied. Like, they literally couldn't get food. So we had a huge influx of people coming in because they just needed groceries. And we don't give a lot of groceries out. We give a bag full that has canned goods and some pasta, and then we give a couple, we give a bag of frozen berries and meat if we have it. So it's not like a lot, but it's enough to get you by for about 4 days. And I mean, just even that, it's like, that wasn't necessarily the government's fault, but there were people playing the system. There were people playing. I mean, I couldn't fathom it. I was like, why on earth do you go after food stamps? Of all things, like, if you have the technology to steal money out of anywhere, why do you choose food stamps of all places? You know what I'm saying? And so, like, I mean, just hearing story after story after story about people coming in, and they're like, I'm so sorry I had to come in, like, my food stamps got stolen. I was like, hey, I already heard the story, like, you're good. You don't have to explain yourself. But these people are heartbroken over it. They don't want to have to ask for help.
Right.
They want to be able to get by on their own, but it's not their fault that some person that's good with technology or whatever was able to steal their money to get food, you know? And then they not only were they not able to get their food stamps back, because how it is, I think it's a number that you have. So that number got stolen. They have to reapply for food stamps. Well, the food stamp system is already so backed up with the government that it's very, very hard to get food stamps right now because it's so backed up. So now there's so many people who were struggling to get food stamps because their food stamp number was getting stolen that now they have nowhere to turn. They have to turn to ministries, and I'm so thankful that there are ministries that are open, or nonprofits, even if they're not connected to a Christian, organization. Like, I'm so glad that that's open for people to get. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of injustice in the world, whether it be through the government, whether it be through policies, whether it be just through life in general. Like, I mean, those are just two stories I could share, but those are just things I've seen recently within the last few months.
But this is constantly happening.
Constantly, yeah.
And this is just in our little area of the world, like in the United States. That's not even counting like what this looks like in places like I've personally gotten to go to the country of Kenya, where like you literally see people. Like, they don't even have a food stamp system to live off of.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't even have any sort of system that helps them. The government may try, but there's people that make tin houses out of things. Like, I'm not talking, like, traditional African mud houses. These are, like, people in a capital city of a country, and all they have is maybe some fruit they can pull. Only some fruit markets that may be able to get stuff that is infested with flies and disgusting.
Exactly, yeah.
And, like, not only does that put a huge dent in your heart when we're in our position where we are privileged to be in the middle class and have even, like, this microphone, have any of this stuff with us.
Even have access to food stamps, like you said.
Yes.
Like, that is a blessing in and of itself. And yes, that's the lower income people in our country, but even that is such a privilege that we do have a government that can afford even that, like that. We do need to be thankful for that. We really, really do. And I can attest that even though this injustice really does exist, like genuinely exists, I will say I do see a lot of people who are still thankful for what they have. They're not wanting more. They really aren't. They're willing to work. They understand the state of the world. They understand all these things, but they're still thankful. They're always thankful coming in, and they come in when they need it, or they come in monthly if they need that. But either way, they're very thankful for what we give them. It doesn't matter what we give them. They're not nitpicky about it. We get people in that are, and those are usually people that we're like, okay, you're suspicious. But the people that are struggling, they come in and they're thankful for it, and I'm glad that they understand what it's like to be lowly. And I think that is a lesson that those of us that don't have to struggle in any form or fashion can take away from anybody in a lower position than us. And then, of course, going to other countries, like poor countries, there's so much humility that you can learn from those countries. Being someone who has gone to multiple countries, both second world and third world, being able to go to those countries and still learn from those people, like, as Americans, we're not the heroes, mind you.
Absolutely
like, we are not God. We are not the ones taking the blessing to these people. Oh my gosh, like, we need to get out of that mindset.
Yes.
Can we be blessings to those people? Of course. But can they be just as much, if not more, blessing to us? 100%. Even in the midst of their injustice, like places like Honduras. Honduras has a completely different system set up than we do. Their injustice is a daily thing. Women are treated like absolute trash there, and men are raised to be the people who get to decide everything. Like, there's a lot, and yet it is still such a beautiful country. There is amazing people there, and I learned so much from the people there. But seeing Christianity and seeing goodness rise up among that even is very, very encouraging to see from a Western point of view, from an American point of view, and from a white point of view too.
Yes.
You know, and so like we have to take humility from that and learn
Right.
from that and understand the position that we're in, and then be able to have, like I said, compassion towards those that may be in a harder circumstance than us.
Absolutely. But what you said about Christianity, I think there's something interesting there because, yeah, like you said, I have met people who are of Muslim faith but are very generous, very humble, very kind people. But what you said about even people in Honduras or people struggling with the food stamp system here, they can find that gratitude.
Yes.
And I mean, this might sound like I'm a rhetorical question, but like who or what do you think is driving them to that place of gratitude, even when they have people high above them that are pushing them in that corner, that are giving them such a rough life?
I mean, true humility isn't thinking of yourself as less than. It's knowing exactly who you are in Christ and being thankful for the position you're in. That's what humility is.
Right.
And I think that even those that don't believe in Christ can come to that position if they really understand the state of the world that they're in and the blessings that do come to their life, or even maybe in their perspective, the luck that has come to their life. I see people with very negative points of view that have everything in the world. And I see people with very positive points of view that have nothing in the world.
Right.
Who've lost everything, yet still have some sort of a joy that they walk in. What pushes them to this point of gratitude, honestly, I don't know if I'm the right person to speak on this, but from what I have witnessed is, I think that they understand that the next day it could be completely different, whether it be good or it could be bad. I have people coming in that have lost everybody in their life. There was a woman that came in that lost her husband and her son, and she was trying to make it day by day by day, which is why she needed help. And yet she still had a joy because she knows that at any point someone you love could be lost, and why would you waste the day feeling sorry for yourself when there might be someone else hurting. There was a lady who came in, and she is the sweetest lady. She does not share our viewpoints at all, whether you're talking politically or theologically or whatever. She does not share this. But let me tell you, this lady, she's got a heart like I've never seen. Even coming in, like, she wanted to talk to people. She got emotional thinking about the other people in the room with her and talking to her. Like, we helped her out because she needed it. She, even when she left the building, I went back out to check on them. She was taking things out of her food bag and trying to give it to someone else because she was a single person, but someone else who had come in had 4 kids. And she was like, and I went up to her and I was like, do you need anything else? Like, please, can I give you anything else? And she, like, started weeping, and she just gave me a hug, and she's like, I look around and there are people that need so much more than me. Mind you, this same lady had just told me just 30 minutes prior how she had lost everything, how she was homeless, how all of her friends recently had died, how she had a funeral to go to the next day, how, you know, it was incredible to watch that type of emotion. And it was incredible to see that type of compassion and to hear her, even from her circumstance, say I mean she said it herself. She said, if nothing else, like, we're put on this earth to help one another. Why is it so hard to love one another? And she was crying at this point. And I was like, whoa, like, that's incredible. That's incredible. And that's coming from someone who is not religious either.
We need that faith. We need that heart for people, especially because we have what truly brings life, not because we have the answer, but God has given it to us. So we need to have that. Like, we need to learn from that lady. Especially just in the impact of, like, how people can be hurt so often. That kind of joy is something that the early church had, where people can notice something different about them because they saw that these people were getting brutally murdered, and yet they were the kind ones. They were the ones known for selling their fields in order to help anyone that was in need. And yes, that was to the church, but they were also the people that listened to when Jesus said, "You gave me food when I was hungry. You gave me a drink when I was thirsty." And they said, "When did we do this?" And he said, "When you helped the least of these, you helped me."
When I was in college, there was this book that I read that said that as soon as you realize that everything you have is not really yours, you really start to serve and be of service to somebody. And I think that's the attitude that we need to have as Christians.
Right. And that's something that I think Matt does a good job in the show of giving, that he gives his heart, leg, and soul to people. Like, not more than just Hector, he gave it to all people. Even like when the poor man like confronted him on the reality he's living, Matt like sat with that. He realized, oh crud, I don't understand this.
Yes.
Yeah, he was humble enough to accept that, he was wrong.
And so bringing this, kind of just wrapping up in the show's context, in terms of themes or other moments you'd want, what is something that you two would like to see going into next season? Because I know that the show is written to where it's going to have 2 seasons. We're going to get the ending next time.
So the director said that this first season was the Greek tragedy, and that the second season is the French Resistance. And so,
Heck yeah.
That's going to be fun to see. My favorite part of Matt is seeing his struggle with his faith and his beliefs. Though he is Catholic, it's cool to see a superhero truly like have a struggle with faith. And so I hope we see him like go to like the Catholic Church like we saw in I think episode 1 or 2. But he felt so guilty for not being able to save Foggy that he didn't go in. Like he could just hear the music from outside the door, and
It's true.
and just kept on walking.
What about you, Abby?
I don't know. I really want... I'm excited to see what he does with Kingpin. Because there is such this pull in the first season between do I kill or do I not? And I think he's going to be faced with that same decision, I mean, potentially, at the end of or during the second season. And of course, we've already seen him in the first series give mercy and not kill Kingpin. But I don't know. Are they going to... Are they going to do something drastic? How is he going to end Kingpin's reign?
Right.
How is he going to do that?
Yeah.
Because even when Kingpin was away, Vanessa took over the business and made it thrive.
Yes.
Right? Kingpin comes back, and he is just as merciless as before.
He's
And it's-
literally putting politicians in cages,
He
like so
literally
non-subtle about how he's holding
Holy
people.
cow, but like, this isn't a person that you can just put behind bars. I mean, we see that in the original
Yeah.
series too. Like, he takes over the prison.
He has
You know,
everyone in his
He
pockets.
has everybody. So like, to end his reign, either he has to become good, genuinely good, and therefore Vanessa has to become good as well because she's
Right.
just as much involved, or he's got to die. So, what are they gonna do with Kingpin?
Yeah.
Like
I don't know.
that's my question. There's just too much.
We've never seen Kingpin have this much like influence and power before
Yes.
too. So like, I don't know how Matt and Karen like sort of get to a point where they expose that.
Right.
They could bring it to like a newspaper outlet like the Daily Bugle maybe. But we don't know like what is that gonna do. Like he already
Right.
has so much influence. So
Right.
I don't know how you get out of that.
Yeah. I wonder if he's gonna like self-implode. Like maybe I don't know. Like there's just so many avenues they could go down. But
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see the imagination and the art that they put into the fall of Kingpin. And
Yes.
I am also excited. I mean, we were kind of hinted at this a little bit, but I'm excited to see if they kind of bring a band of what's it called, vigilantes together to like to do the French Revolution.
Right.
I'm very excited to see that. Of course, I'm an action person, so I love the fight scenes. I love seeing all
Right.
of that. I love seeing that, and I'm excited to see more Karen, of course, because Karen
Absolutely.
is my favorite character. I think she brings so much innocence, but also so much like I don't know. What would you say?
Like, she has a ton of, like, conviction,
She
you know?
does.
Like, she doesn't, like, just sit around waiting to be saved. She's not your normal damsel in distress.
No, she
Right.
is not.
She
Definitely
proves that
not.
even in her little limited time in this show.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm excited to
The way
see
she
it.
carries herself, you know, it's cool to see.
Me too, especially because this is one of those rare stories where I really don't know what's going to happen. Because with other shows, like, I just know formulas so well that I can see, like, the thing setting up. But I really don't know what's going to happen, even if, like, there may be a French resistance. But, like, who knows if Kingpin's actually going to be taken down, even sent to jail. Yeah, like you said, he could still be operating. And I mean, like, there are other superheroes that fight Kingpin, so I'm not trying to turn this into Spider-Man, although the show has given at least 2 references to him, and not just an offhanded comment, but also his theme, which was confirmed by writers. So with the official release of the new Spider-Man movie coming out, like, it leads me to think, unfortunately, behind the scenes, there's a lot of reasons right now Daredevil or Kingpin can't be in the movies for some reason, but it leads me in hope that he might become a bigger presence to where, like, he could be a huge threat in the next Spider-Man movie.
Yo,
that we really
100%.
see the impact of his grip over New York.
How interesting would that be? So interesting.
I would love to see Kingpin in the Spider-Man movie. I mean, like, to see them team up is like a dream that I want to see come true one day. But, you know.
Not to mention these specific versions of these characters.
yeah.
Tom Holland, Spidey.
Yes.
I just would love to hear, like, them in the same room, and he goes, "You think yourself a Spider-Man? I only see a child in skin-tight spandex."
And he's just like, I'm just a dude from Queens, bro. Like, you know, like, just see him say something like that. Like,
What?
that would
And
be
you're just
so
a big man
fun.
child in a suit or
Yes,
something like that.
I'm also interested to see about how much time is going to be between these 2 seasons, too.
Yes.
Like, is he going to take Kingpin down immediately? Maybe not. Like, if Kingpin is involved in one of the Spider-Man movies, well, there has to be some time in between.
Right,
So, like,
yeah.
that's going to be very interesting to see as well.
Right.
Like, you know,
Absolutely.
how long has New York been under this control of Kingpin?
martial
and,
law.
and what all has
Yes.
been put in place? Because
right.
if Kingpin is smart, he's not a dumb villain at all.
Yes.
Yeah,
Like,
which is why he's really good.
Yes, he implants himself. Like, he's going to make it hard for Matt to destroy him.
Right.
Like, it's going to be a fight. It's not going to be easy.
Yes, that makes good writing.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And, like, even just, like, framing this to real life, it's like, man, there's so many Kingpins in the world. Like, literally, Kingpin is a word that's been used for many people
Right.
from history past,
Right.
emperors and kings. And yet the idea that, like, in real life, the only way we're actually going to be able to defeat them is putting it in the hands of the only one who can defeat them.
Right.
Like, I've been going through Revelation in my church, and I think what's so interesting there is reading it through the perspective of the 7 churches it was sent to.
Right.
Realizing, okay, this is not, this is going to make some older people angry if you listen to this, but this is not foretelling how America is part of the fall of the world or
Right.
anything.
Yeah.
What it is telling them is God sees their struggles. He sees the dragon that is Satan oppressing the world, the 4 horsemen that have been charging through all of time to hurt and kill people. And God is saying, be patient. I promise I am going to fix everything. Vengeance is his. That one day all the kingpins of the world who do not repent are going to get their justice. That they will see retribution for what they've done.
Right.
And I think that does bring some solace because, like, you know, like, I don't think I have any martial arts capabilities, but I can't deny I've wanted to punch my bullies in the face. I struggled with that as a kid, just, like, wanting to directly confront it. But also realizing in real life, that is not what really is important. It's not about taking down the thrones of evil humans, in quotation marks. It's fighting the forces that are influencing the world into evil.
Right.
I know that that's not a place that, well, I would assume that's not a place that Daredevil would go.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do hope that we see more of his wrestle with his religion. You know, though we don't really see Matt having a personal relationship with God. Of course,
Yes.
you know, in the original series we see him having a personal relationship with his priest, but he doesn't have a personal relationship with God. He still has so much of this religion and expectation or belief or faith or whatever you want to call it. And I don't know, I would really like to see that incorporated more, you know, like the conversations we're having. I would like to see him talk about, you know, the ultimate hope that we have and the ultimate hope that Catholics believe in too. You know, Catholics do believe in this same hope.
Yes.
And so I would like to see him. I mean, even when we talk about the injustice of our world, that it's real, that food stamps exist, that there's poverty in other countries, that there's horrible injustices, you know, all these stories that I told and you told, and, you know, all the things that we might see in this world. Like, of course, I'm glad that he was able to realize that the system wasn't working. But I would love to see maybe a realization for him, a personal realization that, okay, there is hope beyond this world. That even if you don't defeat the evil in this world, that evil will be defeated ultimately. And I hope that maybe the priest says that. That would be wonderful to watch. If he goes back to his priest, if the priest says that, that would be so, so, so cool.
He looks at the church in the first episode, so we know that, like, God has not left his mind completely.
No. And I mean, we see him doing the prayer to the lawyer, what is it called? The saint for the lawyer, you know?
Yes.
We see him doing that. So we definitely see him going back to some of his roots, you know, and thinking about it more. I mean, if he didn't have some form of a hope, he wouldn't go back to those types of things. So it's nice to see that.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like a great double meaning in that episode where he prays.
Yeah.
He says to his girlfriend, who's by far the worst character in the show. She's no Karen.
Definitely not Karen.
When he wakes up in the hospital, he's like, Karen? And she's like, oh.
Yeah, that was funny. The fact that her name is Karen too, and that we love her.
Yeah.
You know?
Anyway.
Not all Karens are evil.
Yeah, so, exactly. But going back to my point, like he says this really great line. He says to his girlfriend, you know, like, she says, "You're praying again?" And he goes, "Yeah, you know, I always come back to it. You know, I leave for a bit, but I always come back to it." So he knows that there is a hope there. And his view of God has always informed like his actions too.
Yes.
And so especially in the original show, and season 3, his struggle, which you will watch because it's the perfect show and you're gonna watch it and you're gonna love it.
Normal Christians don't gaslight everyone.
Only close friends.
Exactly. They can gaslight me. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Of course. But yeah, so I think it'll be really good because, you know, he's always seen God as, you know, someone that has guided his actions, and through, like, you know, even though he's blind, he knows that he's been given these gifts by God to act upon, you know, the injustices of the world.
I also think that, okay, I'm sorry, I know we're running on time.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I would also like to say that I think it is interesting and notable to say that you can't have justice without God. You can't have good without God. Like,
there is no moral truth if no one crafted it.
Exactly. And so for him to be a good lawyer, he has to seek justice. Justice comes from the Lord.
Yes.
Whether it's corrupted by the world or not, this desire for justice comes from the Lord, comes from his masterpiece, comes from his organization of the world. Like, it comes from goodness, and goodness cannot exist without a platform to know what goodness and badness is. You know, you have to have some basis to it. And so I think it's very interesting because I wonder if it is like when he starts to lose himself, he comes back to that because he realizes that he can't be who he wants to be either way
without
God.
Absolutely.
Because he would just give in to depravity at that point, just like everybody else. And I think that's fun for me to think about.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because one of my favorite sections of scripture is the part where I think it is in John, but Jesus tells the crowd following him that want more food after feeding the 5,000 the stakes it's going to take to follow him, that you must leave your father and mother, you must be solely devoted, take up your cross.
Yes.
And people leave because they're disappointed.
Yes.
And then Jesus looks at his apostles and says, "Are you going to leave too?" And Peter goes, where else are we going to go? You hold the words of life.
Yes.
And what you said with Matt there, I think is so good because he realizes, like, what else is there? Where else am I going to find, like, any semblance of goodness in this? And I mean, I can't deny I'm a little skeptical they might go this direction just because I don't think this is written by Christians. But
Right.
Yeah,
I
of
do
course.
really hope that Matt will turn his gaze heavenward and realize that, like, ultimately, even if at the end of next season Kingpin is going to still reign, that God is in control and that there is going to be justice for all the people that have been oppressed long
Yes.
before Kingpin was mayor
Right.
and long after he is finally dethroned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. Like,
That would be the ultimate goal, right?
hopefully, and hopefully that would just spell the end for Daredevil. So
Oh my
hopefully,
gosh,
just
yeah.
at least in a narrative sense, we don't have the MCU problem where he just pops up randomly.
know.
It's like, give him a good ending like they gave
Yes.
Loki. Just like, all right, you brought back Charlie
Yes.
Cox.
Oh, yeah.
Let's give him a
Yes.
solid
Yeah.
ending.
Or
here.
like the
Yeah.
Guardians and Volume
100%.
Yes.
You know, give them a
Yeah.
good defining ending. You know.
Absolutely.
It can be done well. It
Absolutely.
can be done well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I hope that one of my favorite parts of this character. I'm sorry, I know we're
No,
going
go ahead.
long,
It's
but
all right.
One of my favorite parts of this character is, you know, his struggle to like what you said earlier. He like feels like he deserves like a certain amount of suffering too, and a certain amount of hate, and I think he does not. Like, he doesn't like himself sometimes, and so I really do like, and I relate to that because he feels like he deserves a certain amount.
Oh yeah, that's
and-
why he likes to be beaten
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
You know,
right.
He feels like he deserves.
There's at one point in the original show, like, he's kind of just like, you know, hit me because like I deserve this.
Yes,
You know?
Wow.
it's oh my.
Yeah,
wild.
yeah.
Wild.
Wait, guys,
You're
guys,
like
should,
relatable.
should I watch the original show?
I mean-
Is that what you imply by
I
saying
would
that?
recommend it. You know.
You know, it's unnecessary,
You
but
will
for
love
sure. Do it
Yeah.
or you're not holy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, heresy.
The Holy Spirit divinely showed Daredevil to the apostles to make sure they could make it into heaven.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna start sounding like mega church pastors.
Sorry,
like, if
guys,
you don't
sorry,
watch
guys.
this, you.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
guys.
Anyway.
We're doing this, what people do to the Chosen, you're doing with Daredevil
Oh my
right
god.
now.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, but anyways, I really like seeing that part of him because he like started crying whenever like Frank called him out for like not being
Right.
able to talk about Foggy.
Oh gosh.
And
yeah.
like and he said it's not about him, and like
Yeah.
it is about
It
him.
absolutely
it is
is.
about him. Yeah.
And like he can't like he doesn't forgive himself, and
Yeah.
like that is like forgiveness
There's
is
a
rooted in
self-loathing.
God, like
Right.
Yeah.
it is so inherently rooted in God.
Yeah.
And like once he accepts mercy, like it is
Yes.
like it's so
Yes.
amazing, and so I would love to see that.
Right.
You know, forgive himself for not being able to say Foggy. I would love to
Yes.
see that.
That
in
would be
season two.
so important
Yeah.
for
Right.
his role.
Well, I also think we have to remember from a Catholic perspective, like grace is by works, right? Like you
Yeah,
get
right,
forgiven
and
because of works.
Catholics,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Or sorry, Catholics, yeah.
Yeah.
And like, but Christianity, like grace is from
Received,
the blood.
right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
received freely. Like you don't
Right.
have
It's a
to
gift.
do anything. It is a gift. And so like it'd be interesting to see Daredevil
And a Catholic,
wrestle
yeah,
with
right.
that a
Yes.
little bit. You
Yeah.
know,
That would be
Come
great.
to the Protestant side.
If there any Catholics are listening, we love you. We're not.
We do
Absolutely.
love you. We do love you.
But anyways, Noel, cover your ears for a second.
Okay. All right, audience. I am unironically away from the mic.
Yes, he actually is.
So there, I mean, I think he can do this really greatly through his mom, who is in
Yes.
if in the original show, it's season 3, she's in it. So like if they
Yes.
brought back his mom, you
Oh,
know, to
that's a
talk
good
about
point.
you know forgiving oneself about
You know, he's
that.
gonna have to edit this later. He's gonna hear it anyway.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's
Oh
okay,
well,
continue.
you know. Anyways, yeah,
That's a
you can
good
uncover
point.
your ears now, Noel.
Okay.
Once you experience, and you will love the show.
All right.
Otherwise, we are no longer friends. I mean,
Aw.
we will be friends forever because you'll love the show. And yes,
Wow.
You'll consider me a vigilante.
Wow.
I don't love.
excommunicated.
Okay, what if I think it's
I'm
good
kidding.
but overhyped? What
That's
were the-
fine,
Okay.
but I will hate. No,
Happy's face tells me no.
Oh wow! I don't even know what's going on between these two right now. I'm just the innocent bystander. I'm just here, sitting here,
Okay.
Not antagonizing at all.
Of course not. Well, to wrap all of this up, I would love to pray over this and for you
Yes.
too. So why don't we go to the Lord real quick?
Yes.
For sure.
Father God, thank you so much for this time we just had, and I pray you may forgive me for not having absorbed Daredevil in my time. Lord, how awful of me. But seriously though, Lord, I really do thank you that this piece of art, even if it wasn't, quote, as good as the original, was still able to bring us together to talk about some very real problems that are happening in our world right now. And Abba, we know that you are in control of every piece of it, that you are actively a part of each life right now. And when we can't understand the levels of corruptness in the system from our country and many others, and even in our own towns, Lord, we know that you are actively watching over it and working it all for the good of those who love you. And I pray, Lord, that you will continue to do this, and that maybe even in the writers' minds, they will help Matt realize that he ultimately needs to turn his eyes toward you, knowing that even if Kingpin is not going to be taken down easily, that he knows that God will take care of it, that vengeance is his. And I pray, Lord, that that will translate into our lives, that as we go forward right now, may we rise above this art and realize that you are in control, so that we don't handle these situations in a way that you would not want us to, but we instead show love, that we extend and share of your love. So that way, instead of us treating the kingpins of the world, or the muses of the world, the psychopaths, the people that lavish in evil, we don't treat them as the monsters, but we fight back against the real monsters behind the scenes, pulling the strings and corrupting and turning God's children away. So please lead us in this, and I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
And for the audience, above everything, I want you to know that above everything God has created, he was the happiest when he made you. Grant and Abby, once again, thank you for joining me on this incredible talk we just had.
Thank
course.
you for having us.
Yes.
For letting us geek out
And listening to our rants.
It was wonderful. Even when I learned how awful and unrepentant I am for not watching Daredevil.
It's okay.
It's okay.
We still love you. We still forgive you, and we're still praying for you.
It's okay, because guess what, Noel?
What, Grant?
You're gonna love the show.
You
Oh, I am? Okay.
You will watch, and
Well,
you will love the show.
Well, you hear it here, audience. If I end up loving the show, will you give this a 5-star rating? While we're in this progress, though, if you did enjoy this episode, a 5-star rating would be appreciated, or whatever you think it deems. My email is in the show notes for anyone who would love to connect or give feedback, positive or negative, on the show.
For sure.
But to end it off, may the God of peace himself sanctify you completely, and may your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Grace be with you all.
Amen.